So we are well into wood stove season, but this isn't the only fire I have to play with this year. So I recently purchased a new to me central boiler outdoor wood furnace. So I've been burning it for about 6 weeks now, and I'm going to talk about how I've been liking it, things I don't like, and my overall experience being a first-time outdoor wood boiler owner. So I bought and installed that used boiler this year, and I lit the fire in it on November 10th, and it is currently December 21st. It hasn't really been all that cold yet this year for Northeast Ohio. It's like 24, 25 degrees right now. It's been around there, gets like 30s in the day, so it hasn't been terribly cold. But with that being said, when it does get colder, I don't think I'm gonna have a problem with this boiler. So the last time I put wood in this was at 7 p.m. last night, and it is currently, it's almost 10 a.m. the next day. So it's been about 15 hours since I put wood in it, and I think I put like 9 or 10 pieces of wood in it. And you can hear the dampers open, it's calling for heat. The water temp's still at 171, so not too bad. So that's a little bit longer than I normally go. I usually feed it every 12 hours pretty consistently, but I did let it go a little longer this time because I haven't cleaned out the ashes yet, and I want to do that before I light the fire. So I'm going to clean out the ashes real quick, and then I'm going to talk about how much wood I'm going through, what I think about it, the house I'm heating, and all that. What's in there, Leo? Is there a mouse? So I actually probably could have let those ashes go for like 2 or 3 more weeks. There really wasn't that much in there. That's one thing I like about this Central Boiler Classic. The firebox is so big, you can let those ashes build up for a while, but that was my first time cleaning them out. I know some of like the gasification, higher efficiency outdoor boilers, a lot of them have an ashtray down below and like shaker grates, but you have to clean those out like once or twice a week. There's a lot more maintenance with those, but I do know it's better to clean it out, even in this model, more often than not, because the water jacket goes all the way around. So if you let those ashes build up, the ashes insulate the fire from heating the water, you know, underneath that jacket. So I don't know how much of a difference that makes, but it probably does improve efficiency a little bit more if you clean out the ashes more often. So that's about how much wood I put in every 12 hours, pretty consistently, not counting that starter wood on the bottom. About 8 to 10 pieces of wood, you know, that size, probably double the size of like a piece of campfire wood. So I split it a little bit bigger just because I got this huge firebox to work with. So for those of you that don't know how a outdoor wood boiler or wood furnace, whatever you want to call it, works, basically you have a wood fire inside surrounded by a water jacket or water tank above the fire. The fire heats the water, and then that water is circulated underground to a house or a building with a pump. So it heats up the water to, there's different settings, but mine's set at 175 degrees. So that hot water is circulated with this pump through PEX lines underground to the house, where it is then transferred with some form of radiant heat or through a forced air furnace. The heat is distributed from the hot water into the house through a couple different ways. But basically you're heating hot water that's circulating through the house, one big loop, coming back, warming back up, and then going in the house. And I'll show you my situation in a minute. And this is the Central Boiler 6048 model. I bought it from a friend used. It's kind of old. It was built in 2008, but it was well taken care of. So I think there's a lot of life left in it. And this is the non-gasification model. So for those of you that are wood boiler people, you know that most brands have two models. You have the basic model like this, and then they have a gasification model, which does the same thing basically, but it does it more efficiently. The damper just closed, so it hit temperature. So it's at 175, that damper just shut, scared Bo a little bit. Now the fire is just gonna kind of smolder until the temp gets below 165, then that's gonna open, giving the fire more air. Shush. But the gasification models basically do the same thing, just more efficiently. They have a firebox, but they use some fans and a way to get the fire to burn more cleanly, get all the gases. I think it burns like down into another chamber and then reroutes the exhaust out the chimney. It basically just burns wood more efficiently. It burns less wood, but they're more finicky. Your wood has to be really dry, and there's a bunch more moving parts. So I'm not against a model like that. This is just kind of the one I ended up with. I may look into those in the future, but as of right now, I'm really happy with the amount of wood that this is burning. I don't think this has burned a lot of wood at all so far, especially for 6 weeks. I've pretty much heated with wood my whole life. Growing up, my parents always had a freestanding wood stove that heated their whole house. And the past 5 or 6 years, I had a fireplace insert that heated pretty much my whole house. So I'm plenty used to heating with wood, just never used an outdoor wood boiler to heat with wood. So this is kind of a new experience. But with that being said, I'm really happy with the little amount of firewood I've burned so far. I'm guessing I've went through about 1.5 cords, maybe 2 cords of wood for the past 6 weeks of constant burning. Before I got this, I've talked to people and watched a bunch of YouTubes, and I've heard some horror stories that people were burning like 15 to 20 cords of firewood, and just how much wood these things consume. And that just sounded so crazy to me. I didn't really believe it. I'm sure some people are, but that has a lot to do with where you live, how cold it is, how well your house is insulated, you know, a ton of different variables. But I'm not burning anywhere close to that. So that just sounds pretty insane to me. For those of you that need like a visual, if that crate right there was full, which it was, I was guessing everything I had under here was about 4 or 5 cords of wood. So you can kind of imagine if someone's burning 15 to 20, I would probably find a different heating source. I mean, maybe some people don't have an option, but I would say that their stove is really inefficient, or their house is terribly insulated, or maybe their PEX underground isn't insulated. There's a lot of variables, but I'm just glad that I'm not burning anywhere close to that. And I'm not heating a bunch of space, and I'll show you the space I'm heating in a little bit, like I said. But even when I finish my house edition, I don't think I'm going to be burning anywhere close to that. And I split most of my wood this size. It's maybe double or triple, like a campfire piece of wood you'd see at the gas station or something. They average 20 inches long, and about this size. Some of them are bigger and smaller, and most of my wood isn't that dry either. I wish I was able to get it split and stacked a little earlier, but most of this I split and stacked probably 3-4 months ago. So they could have dried out longer and been more efficient. That's probably another reason a lot of people burn more wood. I know with these classic models, people say you can cut down a tree and throw it right in there, soaking wet, a live tree. And you can, and it will burn it, but you're losing a ton of efficiency because you're wasting all that energy and all those BTUs. You gotta burn off all the moisture before that energy can heat the water. So the longer, even with these non-gasification classic wood stoves that will burn wet wood, the drier you can get your wood, the more efficient it's going to be. That's another variable that affects how efficient they run. There's just so many, how wet your wood is, what type of wood. Most of my wood, I got a little bit of pine, but it's mostly maple. There's some cottonwood in here, maple, a little bit of oak. This whole crate was mostly cherry, actually. The past 6 weeks of burning was mostly cherry and a little bit of pine. So the species of wood matters. There's just so many different variables that will tell you how efficient these outdoor boilers will heat. So I'm in the middle of putting an addition on my house, but right now the wood boiler is only heating that current house right now, which is about 800 square feet. So I'm not heating this addition space yet, so that's probably one reason why I'm not going through a whole bunch of wood. This is the basement for our addition that I'm working on. And then this is the basement under our current house that the boiler is heating. So technically, I guess we're heating 1,600 square feet because we got to heat this basement, and then that heat's rising, heating the upstairs house. So I guess you would call it 1,600 square feet is what that boiler's heating right now. So this is my temporary heating system I rigged up to make it through this winter. Until I finish my house addition, then I'll have the radiant floor hooked up and everything. But I wanted to heat with that outdoor boiler this year, so I made this work. So these are the hot water lines, the inlet and the return, running from the boiler. So that's constantly flowing with the hot water. Right now it's just one big circuit. So that hot water is running through this heat exchanger or radiator. And this is, whatever the water temperature is or close to it, around 170 degrees. And that's constantly hot. And then I mounted this fan behind it, which is hooked up to a thermostat upstairs, like a normal house thermostat. And then I put power to it. So whenever the thermostat calls for heat upstairs, this fan kicks on, blowing that hot water heat through that heat exchanger and just heating up this whole basement space. And then it's warming up this space, and then that hot air is rising through the floor. And I have 3 old return ducts, vents through the floor that's helping that heat get up there too. So it's actually working out a lot better than I thought it would. I had a pretty good idea that it would work because this is only 800 square feet, or 1,600 if you're counting the basement and the upstairs. But I didn't really know how much heat this would put out. But so far it's working really well. It doesn't seem like any part of the system's struggling really. You know, the fan kicks on with this temperature around 25 degrees, it's probably kicking on every hour for, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes or something. So it's working pretty well. So those hot water lines just come through this temporary wall. And then this is where my insulated underground PEX pokes through my basement wall and then just ties in a normal PEX into that heat exchanger. So you can't see because I covered it up with foam, but I did go with the more expensive solid foam filled insulated underground PEX. And they say you lose less than 1 degree of temperature for a 100-foot run. And I only have 90 feet, so technically I shouldn't lose any water temperature from the boiler all the way to here. And I haven't checked that. Maybe I should check to see if that's true. But I keep kind of bringing up the all the different variables that make heating with an outdoor boiler efficient or less efficient. And I think that's one big factor is the type of insulated PEX you use and or how long your run is. Because if you were to just bury normal PEX underground like this, which I know some people have, or they insulate it very little, if you think about your ground temperature, say it's like 50 degrees, it's somewhere around 50 degrees, it changes a little bit, but if you don't have any insulation around your PEX and your hot water is like 170 degrees running through 50 degree ground for 100 plus feet, you're gonna suck a lot of heat out of your water before it even gets to your house. So I think that was one really crucial step. If you're gonna spend the money to put it in, I think that's one area you should spend the money, is get the most efficient insulated PEX you can, because I think a lot of heat is lost underground if you don't. Even like this foam pipe insulation I put on these 2 runs of PEX, even though it's temporary, you know, I don't have this side of the basement heated yet, so it's like 25 degrees in here. If I didn't have any insulation on those, and it's not even like the greatest insulation, but if those were just bare PEX lines, you know, you got your inlet coming in that's like 170 degrees, you might lose a degree or two of temperature coming in this 25 degree space. So you got it flowing in, you might lose a couple degrees, and then it goes through the heat exchanger, which sucks a couple degrees out of it. And then you got the return, you could lose a few more degrees. So you're kind of wasting a lot of heat. And then if you can imagine, if you have poorly underground insulated PEX running all the way to your boiler, you're wasting a lot of energy heating the ground. So I think it's all the little things accumulated that would make or break the efficiency. So eventually, hopefully next year, I can hook up my radiant floor heat. I'm pretty excited about that. I plan on heating this whole basement floor and potentially running radiant floor underneath these floor joists. I'm not sure yet. And if anybody's been watching the house build videos, if you're curious on how my tarp is holding up, it's actually not too bad. There's got to be 5 or 6 inches of snow on it right now. I did have like a foot of snow on it at one point. It's holding up all right. I just need to get a couple more months out of it and I'd be happy, but it's keeping most of the water off. So overall, I'm real happy with the whole system. I'm happy with the amount of wood I'm burning, the heat, everything really. So I think that makes me an outdoor boiler guy now. Like I said, this will last until, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 o'clock tonight, and then tomorrow morning I'll fill it up again. But let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll probably do another update video towards the end of the season. I might need to plow some snow.